What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video today, and in this video we are doing the 81st installment of Random Model Airports. Today we're going to be doing the McAllen Miller International Airport. No suggestions were provided for this airport, however if you have any new suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. So I wanted to do this airport because I wanted to use a new model that I just got recently, so really excited to use it for the first time here, and that is why we are checking out this airport in Texas, way down by the US-Mexico border. It's like right there too, within the city as well. So this airport has a bit of an interesting history. Not too much I could find on with the airport's opening and all that. But Trans-Texas Airways was the first airline to serve McAllen sometime around the 1940s. They did use DC-3s back then. It was really the only aircraft type that you could really fly on, at least and on a regular basis. Texas International, which became the successor to Trans-Texas, they soon followed with DC-9s across the state and even into Mexico, which I'll talk about the flights to Mexico and their history when we take a look at that flight a little later. The current terminal was built in around 1993, and over the years, the legacy carriers, they did add services, so you had United, Delta, and American coming through here, and they're all still here today with their regional jet aircraft, and American has some mainline flights in here as well, which is good to see, especially for an airport as small as this, which has just 6 gates, but we do have another 737 in this update as well, which will be covered here in just a moment. Legionnaires had some service here for about 15-20 years as well. Continental used to fly through here as well after they acquired Texas International, and they merged in 1982. And speaking of the small size of this airport, they are planning to expand this to add about 4 gates. Construction will start within the next couple years and should be completed sometime in the new decade, 2030. So yeah, we're coming up on the 2030s here. So just be prepared, both mentally and physically, because, you know, we're already halfway through the 2020s, which is crazy to think about, but time is going to fly. So just keep enjoying every moment of it and make the most out of it. But we're going to go ahead and get started with this update as we swing on down to gate number 1. And that, my friends, is, of course, the brand new model. Aeromexico Connect. Finally, I can have an Aeromexico model in an airport update, because I don't have a 737 of theirs, and I'd like to add a MAX 9 at some point, since I saw one of those. And then just like something like a 787 as well, for variety's sake, if I come across one for a good deal. That would also be great to add. So as for flights to Mexico, they've been pretty much a staple of McAllen International for much of its history. They started in around 1967. Trans-Texas flew to Monterrey, and with the merger into Continental, they honored those flights and they kept them going. And they also had services to places like Mexico City and Guadalajara. They eventually ended that by the mid-80s. And then Aero Littoral, I think is how you say it. They were a feeder code share operator for Aeromexico. They started flights in the 90s, and then that ended sometime later. And then I would return a little later in 2012 with Aeromar announcing service to Mexico City. And later they would add a second service to Monterrey in 2021. But that airline shut down in early 2023, so obviously those services aren't around anymore. But they had the ATRs, which was pretty cool. I know Gemini made one of them. I think they did the 42. I'm not sure if they did the 72 or if it was the other way around. But Aeromexico Connect has been here for at least a few years now, and they fly to Mexico City, the new Mexico City airport, which opened to civilian use a few years ago. So this flight arrived in as Flight 2782 at 7:10 p.m. ahead of a scheduled 7:36 p.m. arrival. And the aircraft in real life still wearing the old livery. There's still quite a few of them out there, but since the new livery will become more prominent over time, it's good to have this in advance. So really happy to have this model, and again, thank you Gemini Jets for making this such a lovely model. Highly recommend it. The antennas look great, the details are about as perfect as you can make it be in this scale, and this would be a great addition to anybody's collection, especially if you live in North America and are looking to expand on a fleet of Mexican aircraft, which I certainly need to do, because I think that's my first Mexican aircraft, now that I think about it. I don't think I have anything else. Like, I don't have Mexicana, of course, or just really anything down in Mexico, so that's great that I have something from that part of the world finally, and we'll certainly be expanding upon that in the future. But we'll move on to Gate 3 as we have this Delta Connection Embraer 175 with the short winglets. This arrived in from Austin, Texas. Is Flight 4121, a SkyWest operated flight. So good to see the Delta Austin operations continuing as they see fit. This arrived in at 4:54 p.m., delayed from a 4:48 p.m. scheduled arrival. Only delayed by half a dozen minutes. And then here's our American mainline service parked at Gate 5, the 737-800, which came in from DFW as Flight 3309. I'm not sure what it is with these higher flight numbers, the 3000 series, which would typically be associated with the regional aircrafts, the CRJs and the ERJs and whatnot. Those are now becoming more prominent with the mainline flights, especially like in the 3000, the 3500 series. They seem to be using that more often now for mainline flights. So I guess they're running out of flight numbers to use, but that's what happens. The travel demand has just been going up ever since the pandemic passed. Everybody wants to go everywhere now, which is great. So these airlines trying to keep up with demand best they can. So we'll see how that continues to evolve in the future. But the 738 arrived in as Flight 3309 from DFW at 8:42 p.m. ahead of a scheduled 8:43 p.m. arrival. Then we've got our regional service from DFW as well. This is on the Embraer 175 currently. We need the camera to focus on the fuselage. That's better. This is an Envoy-operated Flight 3972, which arrived in at 9:38 a.m. ahead of a scheduled 10:02 a.m. arrival. Moving over to Gate 4, we have our lone United aircraft at the terminal. There is one more in this update taxiing. The CRJ-200, wearing the old Unicon merger livery, arrived in from Houston Intercontinental as Flight 5327, a SkyWest-operated flight as well. This arrived in at 12:59 p.m., delayed from an 11:27 a.m. scheduled arrival, delayed by about an hour and a half there. Not good for this flight, especially on the CRJ. They also send the Embraer 145 XRs as well from Houston Intercontinental, so we need somebody to make that mold desperately. I know Tarmac Designs, they had some sample 145 XR, but I haven't heard anything new out of that, so we'll see if that gets utilized in the future. And then a Sun Country charter back over here at gate number 2. So nice to see we get Sun Country here with this charter from Gulfport, arriving in as Flight 8133. This flight is from Saturday, April 26th. Which arrived in at 9:28 a.m. ahead of a scheduled 9:55 a.m. arrival. Good head start for this charter. So probably like maybe collegiate sports or something, but obviously basketball has since come to an end, and really the only thing going on for collegiate sports would be like track and field or lacrosse or just, some of the lesser known sports, I guess. I don't want to say, more obscure or niche, but just the sports that don't really get as much coverage as, basketball, football, baseball, and softball and all that. But now we move on to our taxiing aircraft, the final aircraft for this quick update to kick off the May slate of airport updates. We have this Allegiant A319, and this came in from Las Vegas as Flight 1703, their main hub, at 12:19 p.m. ahead of a scheduled 12:32 p.m. arrival. Final aircraft right over here, this little guy, the United Express Embraer 175, also coming in from Houston Intercontinental as Flight 6028. This is a Mesa-operated flight in this case. Mesa's got quite a few of these 175s in the new livery now. This arrived in at 11:15 p.m. ahead of a scheduled 11:29 p.m. arrival. There's McAllen, airport update number 81 in this series for Random Model Airports. Always loving to get this series and just continuing to add variety to the series with all the different airports that we get to do, and especially influenced by new model acquisitions like that Aeromexico Connect 190 right there, which again, a very lovely model, would highly recommend it. So great to get this airport checked off here in Texas. This is, I believe, my 5th one that I've done, because so far I did Lubbock, I think, a little while ago, or Amarillo. It was Amarillo that I did. I did El Paso. Midland was just actually this past month, now that I think about it, so back in Texas so soon. And then I did San Antonio as well last year, or about maybe 2 years ago now, something like that. Or actually, no, I think it was just a year ago because of the Condor service. Yeah, so I've been back about a year ago now. May 2024 is when I did that airport. And then as for Amarillo. That came a long way back. Probably, yeah, June of 2021. Yeah, that's a throwback right there. Throwback and a half for sure. And then El Paso was back in November of 23. And yeah, that's kind of really just how it's been for random model airports here in Texas, the fifth airport in the state. And still got a couple more states that I've yet to do, the likes of Nevada, Utah, Arizona. They don't have an airport in this series yet. Indiana, Mississippi, got in Georgia, technically, I would say. And then New Jersey, Vermont. Those are really the only states that I've yet to do an airport in. Maybe Massachusetts. I don't think I have an airport in there because I did one in Rhode Island, Connecticut, and all the upstate New York airports. Those have been covered. So yeah, starting to run out of airports here in the lower 48 to do. So it'll be interesting to see what I have planned out for this series. May revisit some older airports that I did, at the start of the series, and then obviously go international with this series once I really run out of ideas here in the U.S. So it will be exciting to pursue those ideas as we move forward. With that being said, that is the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.